Sechta Sanhedrin, Daf Lamed Gimel Amud Aleph. We're starting from the second line from the Daf. Dinim Mabneis Machzirin. By Dinim Mabneis, one could the Dayanim could reverse the din, even after the Gemara din, whether it's for Schus, whether it's for Chayv. Ramindo, in fact, Gemara Akasha stated from the Mishnah Mecheres, it says about a Dayan, Don as Adin, he was done Adin by Dinim Mabneis between man and his friend, and he made a mistake. But by mistake, he was mezakeh, the one that was supposed to be chayiv. He said that the nitva is part of from paying the chayiv, or the reverse, chiyus hazakai, where the nitva was supposed to be potter, the daim paskin that is chayiv, or timayes hatar, or the daim paskin on payers that were tamei, where they were be'emes tahinim. Or Tiyas Hatame, where the Dayan Paskin, that the payers were Tahirim, where in truth they were Tame. And then it became clear his mistake. So we say Masha Asasui, the psak that the Dayan gave stands, and you cannot be Mevatel it, Vishalmi Beisai. And the Dayan has to compensate for his mistake in his psak. He caused the loss. So it's akasha. Because in our Mishnah we just said that you can reverse. Dinim Mammon is machzin, and here it comes out that you don't reverse. Mashasa, so we say whatever is done is done. And for the Gemara there's no question. Kan memumcha. Here we're talking about a dayan who's a musmich and he's a professional, and therefore when the baladin he was mezakeh. He has to accept his words now and return the money that he was makabel from the second person, meaning that what the din that he made was a mistake originally, and the opposite is the right way, and therefore we reverse it. Kan, how in the Mishnah Mecheres, where it says that we don't reverse it, is B'Shein Mumcha is talking about a dayan who's not a professional. So therefore, even if he changes it, the Baldin can say, who said you're right now? You're not a Mumcha. Maybe what you said originally is right. But in our Mishnah, we're talking about a dayan Mumcha. So a dayan Mumcha, a professional dayan, if he changes it, we know he knows what he's talking about, and therefore he gets reversed. You're saying by professional Adai Mumcha we reverse the din or Ketani in that same Mishnah Mecheres we learned at the end Im Hoya Mumcha lebezin. If the Adai was a Mumcha, Potter L'Shalim, he's potter from paying the Baladin if it was a mistake. So it's mashma that even by a Mumcha who paskins mitchila, whatever he paskined originally stands, and we don't reverse it, and that's why. He's telling you he doesn't have to pay if he made a mistake. Because if the psak is not a psak, it gets reversed. So it's pashut that he doesn't have to pay. It's obvious that he doesn't have to pay. So what's the chiddush of the Mishnah? It's obviously the chiddush is that the din stands, even though the person the dayan caused somebody to lose, nevertheless the dayan doesn't have to pay. That's the chiddush of the Mishnah. So Zakasha. You wanted to say by Mumcha we do reverse the din, and that's what our Mishnah is talking about. Says Rav Nachman Anutel. Some Rav Nachman here in our Mishnah that we said we reverse it. Sheyesh Gadol Yimanu. There's a greater dayan than this dayan of paskin, bechachma and knowledge of a minion and age. So that dayan who's higher than him can reverse the din. Kan our Mishnah Mecheres where we said you cannot reverse the din because Shein Gadol Yimanu bechachma of a minion. There's nobody greater than him that can come and reverse the din. Rav Sheish gives a different teretz. Our Mishnah that says that you can reverse the din is talking about Shetab Mishnah. He made a mistake in a Befedish Mishnah, and since it was such a clear mistake, his whole psak is not a psak, and that's why he gets reversed. Kan in the Mishnah Mecheres where we say Mashas Asui is Shetab Shikoladas, that he made a mistake in Shikoladas, and the Gemara will explain what Shikoladas is. So you want to know somebody made a mistake in that Mishnah. He could retract because it's not a din. He went against what a Vedish Mishnah. But if the dayan made a mistake in Shikoladas, we don't retract. and the Gemara will explain what Shikul Hadas is. Okay, so we have Rav Sheshes explains the same thing. Even if he made a mistake with Rabbi Yosha in the Braises that Rabbi Yosha had brought down, if he made a mistake in the Fetish Braisa, will we retract the din? He says yes. Even in the cases in the halachas which Rav and Shmuel had paskin, and he went against the psak, which is a fetish psak of Rav and Shmuel, will it be able to retract or reverse the din? He said yes. Yes, yes. Even in our psakim that we paskin, Ravina Ravashi, if he went against that, could the dayan reverse the din? What are we? People so low people that we consider as people who cut reeds in swamps. We're just like Rav and Shmuel. And just like by Rav and Shmuel, we said if he make a mistake in Rav and Shmuel's psak, he can reverse the dayan, could reverse the din. The halacha is not a halacha. So too, if he makes a mistake in us, in Ravashi and Ravina, then he can reverse the din. The din is not a din if he went against the psak of Ravina and Ravashi. So what's the case of Shikul Hadas? You have two Tanoim, two Amoraim that are arguing on each other, and we did not conclude the halach like either of them. And the dayan went and paskin like one of them. But most of the yanim paskin like the other one. That's what Shikul Hadas is. He made up his mind, even though he's following the miyut, but there was no psak halacha like which Rav who we paskin by, but most follow one. And he went, and according to his mind, he understood better the other one, and he paskin like that one. That's called Shikul Hadas. And in such a case, we don't reverse the din because it's a good psak. So the Yimara from this Mishnah on the chilik that Rav Sheshes had given. Rav Sheshes had explained that the chilik is if he made a mistake in that Mishnah or not. There was a story of a parah that was slaughtered in Beis Menachem. That removed the motherhood, the whole stomach from inshallah of this animal, because the Mitzvim didn't want that wherever it came from, they didn't want people to reproduce this. They wanted to be the sole people of bringing out such quality behemoths. Rabbi Tafin gave it to the club because he considered it as a treifa, because they removed the stomach. The story came before the Chacham Yavne. And Chacham Yavne were matzah b'achila if they were slaughtered, even though the stomach was removed. Shabbat take this out because takes this doctor say zira yoitzes ma'Alexander shamatzayim elen kein choytchim ha'im shalakadei shalei teilei. The doctor said it's going to be healthy, and the only reason why they removed the stomachs because it came from the city of Alexander shamatzayim. And they didn't want people to reproduce such a quality behemoths, so that's why they removed that they shouldn't be able to reproduce. So the Ellen came, so they shouldn't be able to reproduce. Somebody said, it's a me to sell my chamer in order to compensate for the person who I caused the loss, because I told him he has to give it to the dogs. You are part from paying the Me'ah Parah because whoever's a professional Rabbi is part from paying. So since he was a Musmich Rabbi Tafin, so he's part. Rav Amnuna explains Rav Shesh's kasha on him from this Mishnah. If it's the chilik that you explain, Toys B'dvar Mishnah, the whole din is reversed. Why did Rabbi Akiva have to say that the reason why he's part from to pay because he was a dayan mumcha? Let him say it's a Mishnah Chulun that says that the stomach was removed. This kasha, and it was and the Tafin passing against the words of the Mishnah. It's not a psak. If it's like Rav Sheshes says that if he makes a mistake in that Mishnah, the whole din is reversed. So from this time, Rabbi Akiva Pater Aptafin was only because he was a mumcha l'Rabbin is mashma. If he wasn't a mumcha, he would be chayiv to pay. The he shouldn't be, because it's a psak against the Dvar Mishnah. Chad, wait, come, I am thinking about that Rabbi Akiva said two things. Chad, number one, the taina that to pater you is pshuta, and it's kaim by every person. Because they tell you Dvar Mishnah, you were making a mistake in the words of a Mishnah. They tell you Dvar Mishnah chayza, and somebody makes a mistake in the Dvar Mishnah, he can retract. Another time to pater you, either because even if you'll say it wasn't a case of a Dvar Mishnah, it was a shikul hadas, where shikul hadas you cannot retract, but nevertheless you would be pater to pay because because you are musmich, a professional. Whoever's a mumch is part of the pay. So you want Rav Nachman, Rav Yitzchak, Rav Nachman, Rav Yitzchak said Rav Micah Meisiv. What is Rav Hamnuna is Rav Sheshmi Potter from the story of the Potter that they removed the stomach, the din that has to. He says Potter Harei Achila. What are you trying to say? Potter Harei Achila the club here already. It's too late. He already gave it to the clubman and he cannot return it. So you can't answer, he was telling you about mitzvah, I was telling you about Mishnah, and therefore he's pater. The damage happened. They gave it to the clubman. He's unable to return it. And if you want to come like this is what he was saying. If you're going to say Mishnah, you cannot reverse the din alma kam dina. So you see from here a din that the Adayim paskins, even though we find out it was a mistake, right? And even if the Busara Behema is still around, it still remains Asva Achila. I know the Kamafin Abitafin. This is the reason Abitafin was troubling. Maybe he was going to have to pay back for the Meya Behema, because through his words he caused a nezek for the bailam that he cannot fix because the din stands. And on this, Rabbi Akiva said, first of all, you're a professional, and you're pater to pay. That's if you're going with the shita that even if you make a mistake, Dai makes a mistake with Dvar Mishnah, the psak remains. Now he says, but if you have Sheis are going to say, like your Svara, that you can retract, Rabbi Akiva will say to Abtafin, if you would have had, the potter would have still been existing and you didn't give it to the klavim, dina chlav dina, your din wouldn't have been a psak. But like klum avat, and you did nothing, because there was no nezek to the bottom. They could take right back the animal. Hashtanami, even now when the potter was thrown to the klavim, lav klum avat, you didn't do any harm. Meaning your psak it was not a psak. And the bottom that threw to the klavim caused the damage of their own. It was their bad mazel. And he was just a grama. He didn't do it directly, and it was bad mazel for that person. Rav Chizda gives a different answer. The Mishnah that said, if the dai makes a mistake in a din, that the din remains and the dain has to compensate. Shenotel is talking about the dain himself, took the money from the nidain, from one baldin, and Nas Bayad, and he gave it to the other baldin. He took it from the Levi and he gave the money to the Malva. And so therefore, you can't retract, you can't reverse the din. He himself did it biyadei. But the Khan, Al Mishnah, where it says that that you can reverse it, not it's not talking about that the Dayan took it from the Levi and put it in the hands of the Malva. So it makes sense in our Mishnah that the Dayan was Mechayiv, the one that was supposed to be potter, the Nitva, and so this Piddush makes sense. The Dayan himself took the money from the hand of the Nitva, if he was Mechayiv him, and he gave it to the Malva. So, and then we find out, it was a mistake. He was really potter. So there you can't reverse the din. I understand. But being mezakeh, somebody who was the nitva, meaning the labor was chayiv, and he says, you're potter. The Dayan says, potter kasher, and really a PMS, the leiva was really chayiv. So only in this case fits to say that the Dayan should be potter, meaning the Dayan potter, and he was mezakna, a person who was really supposed to be chayiv, and Baha says, but in this seifin, loy not manas bayad, he didn't take anything out of the leiva's hand. He potted him. He allowed the money to remain in the leiva's hands. It was a muslik. So why do we say in the Mishnah that even in such a case you can't reverse the din? Here he never took it out of the leiva's hand or the malva's hand and give it to the leiva. The leiva who was supposed to pay, the dayan said you're potter, so he remained in his hand. So he remained in his hand. It's not a case where the dayan took anything out of one hand and gave it to another. And you want to know it is, since he told the Levi, you're potter, so it's as if he took it out of the Mal's hand and gave it to the Levi, because now the Levi doesn't have to collect. It's finished. There's no other step when the dayan paskins the Levi's potter. Now he has to collect his money back to get reimbursed. There's no reimbursement. He was being accused to be chayiv. The psak din was your potter, and the money remains by him. So since there's no other step for the Levi to collect, it's considered as the dayan took it from the malva and gave it into Levi. Says and that's why he can't reverse the din. In fact, really? That's how you explain in B'chayos? That we learned. By din mamanis, we reverse whether it's for schus or cheva. Says I can understand in how that you can reverse the din by schus. The dayan told the nitva to begin with. He tells the nitva, he tells the Levi, you're chayiv to pay the malva. The loy natal, and the dayan didn't take the money with loy nasran, and he didn't give it by yod to the malva. Rather, the nitva himself paid the money to the teveya according to the psak din. And then it became clear that he was supposed to be potter. The Levi was supposed to be potter. So here the dayan could reverse the din because he never physically took the money from any of them and give it to the other one. Rather, it happened between the Baalei Dinim themselves. But when it comes to chayv, how are you going to explain it? The dayan says to the Levi, potter, you're potter. And we said, by him saying potter, and the Levi doesn't have to pay anything, the minute he says potter, it's as if the dayan took it out of the malva and gave it into the Levi's hands, dummy. That's how it's similar to. So if so, how does the Mishnah say you can reverse the din? If we concluded, if it's not manas meyada, you cannot reverse the din. You want that? What's the pshat in the Mishnah? Is chadikatani. It's really one case in the Mishnah. What's the case? What does that mean? In the case where the mechayiv, the leiva, to begin with, and he paid the money, then we can reverse it, that he has to give back the money. Even though through this, when we're making the malva give back the money, the teveya is now losing money. We're grabbing it out of his hands. So, too bad, because the dayan never took it from any of the Baalei Dinim. To begin with, the nitva, the leiva, gave the money to the malva, and then they reversed, and it wasn't the dayan involved. And then the dayan saw he made a mistake. He tells the malva, you have to give it back to the leiva, even though now the malva is losing. But in the case where the Bezdin was mezakeh, the leiva saying you don't have to pay, that's considered as Bezdin gave it to him. So they're not going to be able to reverse it. The Mishnah is only talking about one case, our Mishnah, that you can reverse, and the case was that they were mechayiv the leiva, and the leiva gave it to the malva, and then they he reversed it, and the malva had to give back to the leiva, even though the malva was losing. Says if you can explain that's the kavanah of the Mishnah when it says dinim hamanes you return bein l'schus bein l'cheva, so you have to say the kavasa is by the gabi dinim l'fashis marsin l'schus bein marsin l'cheva. You have to say marsin l'chus bein marsin l'cheva marsin l'schus reidasa. The only time that you could reverse it if it's only for schus itself. But you cannot, if there's going to be somebody else on the outcome losing, then you cannot reverse it. L'schus shehi chayva. In fact, you're talking about a schus, but when it comes to din in the nefashis, and you're acquitting a person from death penalty, who is going to lose over here? You said the only time that you can't retract is the only time you can't that you can't retract if there's a loss for the other. Who's the loss for the other? Chayvas in the man. Who is there going to be a chayv when you're being mezakeh, when you're quitting this person from misa? So if you want to kasha, that's not a kasha. Chayvas l'goyel adam. It's a case where they mechayiv a person for killing Reuben for killing Shimon, and they paskin that he's chayiv misa. Here we're not going to reverse the din to be mezakeh him when there's craving of the nitzach, the craving of the one that was killed. It's very hard for them. They're suffering now from this, that they were reversing the din and making the Ritzayach acquitted, pater. So now the craving are suffering. So that's a chayv for the craving. So when there's a chayv for the craving, we don't reverse the din. So you really? He's saying because the Goyal Adam is going to feel bad, is going to feel hurt that they're quitting the Reitzayach. So we're going to kill the Reitzayach even though we found clear tightness that he shouldn't be Chayiv Misa. Right? And even more so. My Bain L'Schus, Bain L'Chayva, it sounds like Bain. Every time it says Bain, it means it's two separate cases. And you're saying Bain is one case. That it's a schus for one while it's going to be a chayv for the other. That doesn't sound like an Lashon when it says bein l'schus, bein l'chayv. It's two separate cases. It says Gemara because of these two kashas are kutir kasha. And therefore, Ravina is going to give a new pirish. Ravina Amar, that even in the case of where he's mezakeh the chayiv, he was mezakeh the one, he said the Levi's pater, is not going to be considered as the Dayanim gave him something because there's no other step for him to collect. And the Levi is going to be pater by the Dayan saying he's pater, is not going to be considered as Bezdin took it for the Malva and gave it to Levi. Why? Only what's going to be the case? Where could we find in such a case that it will be considered as the Dayan gave it to him? That the Teveya had in his hand, meaning the Malva was given the Mashkin when he gave the loan to the Levi. And the Dayan paskin that the Levi is pater, and not only that, he took the mashkin away from the malva and gave it to the Levi. So there, in such a case, that's the case we're talking about. You can't reverse it because he actually took the mashkin out of the hand of the malva and gave it to the Levi. But stam, to say that when the Levi, that's when it's considered as Bezdin took it out of the hand and he cannot reverse the din. But in the case where Bezdin says patata, they can reverse the din. It's not considered as they took it from the malva and gave it to the Levi. Similarly, by the case of Timias Hatar, what happened? Bezdin was matame by mistake something that was tahir. And what did Bezdin do? The Dayan went, the Agibay Sheretz, the Chacham went, the Dayan went, and threw a Sheretz onto it to show that it's tamei. So he did b'yadayim. He threw something on it to show it's tamei, or the reverse, tiyas atamei. He said this tamei dekainim is really tired, and what did he do? Shayirvon. The Chacham took this something that's really tamei, and he said it's tired, and he threw it between between the peiros that were tired of the guy who came with the shiloh. Maybe it's tamei. He said no, it's tired, and he throws it into between all the peiros that are tahir, and he caused the damage. Like we learned din in the fashis that you reverse the din l'schus, but not for chayiv. How do we know somebody comes out of Bezdin and he's chayiv misa? Yes, that we could find schusim and reverse the din. How do we know that we turn him to Bezdin in order to believe melamed schus? Talmud leima naki al tarek, that if he's clean from a sin, he's not chayiv misa, helping then we don't kill him according to the original psak. How do we know if he comes out of Bezdin acquitted? I have tinus to show that he's really chayiv misa. How do we know we don't reverse it and bring him back to Bezdin to reverse the din l'chayva? Meaning, since the Bezdin gave a psak that he's acquitted, we don't, the tzaddik, they acquitted him, made him a tzaddik, al tarik, then we don't kill him, even if it becomes clear that he was chayiv misa. Rav Simon Ravashi said the reverse is by somebody who encourages others to serve idols. So then you bring him back and you're mechayiv misa. Like it says by a basis, don't have rachmanis on him, not protect him. Rav Kana learns this limud of mesis bin ki harik tahargenu. He learns it out from harik tahargenu. What does it mean harik tahargenu? Ki harik is to when it says that you don't that if he came out of Bezdin chayiv, that you don't return him lischus, because it says ki harik, that you have to kill him even though you find schusim. How do we know if he came out of Bezdin zakai that shemachzinim that we take him back to Bezdin to be mechayiv and misa? Because it says targeno, the second lashon. Okay, what's the din by somebody who killed by accident that's chayiv to go to golus? If Bezdin passing the toes that he's not chayiv golus, could we reverse the din to make him chayiv golus? And the Gemara Asya, Rav Sheish answered, we learn chayiv golus from the din of chayav misa through Gzeira Shava. It says by somebody who killed by mezid meizumas harei tzeyach, and by a person who killed by accident, it says lanu shamar that the person the tzeyach should run there. That's by golus. So we make a Gzeira Shava that just like by misa we don't reverse it once he was found acquitted. So too by shegik, once he was found acquitted from golus, you're not mechayiv him golus. Chayav malchus benayin. How do we know the din by somebody who did an aveda that you chayav malchus on? That could you reverse it or not? So the Gemara Asya, we learn out Rasha. It says by a person by din of hashes, it says leisichu chayav le'avsher yitzech asher Rasha lamos. And then it says by einish malchus v'hayim bin hakos harasha. It says the word Rasha. So we learn out just like by misa by din of hashes, you don't reverse it once he came out acquitted. So too by chayv malchus, if they were acquitted him from malchus, we're not going to reverse it. Tanya Nami Yochi, we also learned from Bryce similarly. Chayav galus benayin. How do we know by chayav galus we're not going to reverse once he was found lischus? So the Gemara, we're not going to reverse l'chayva. Asi, we learn out reitzer from Gzeira Shava. Chayav malchus benayin. How do we know by chayav malchus once he was found acquitted from malchus, we're not going to reverse it for chayva? We can only reverse it for schusim in all cases, but not for chayva. Asya Rasha. We learned after Gzeira Shava Rasha. We learned in our Mishnah we don't reverse the din when it comes to be mechayiv. Who? This din was said only in something that the dayanim of the tzedek, meaning the tzedek are not made of that, something that's not mefurish b'teresh b'ksav, and they made a mistake in something that's not mefurish b'teresh b'ksav, then they don't reverse it l'chayva. We cannot reverse it and say he should be chayiv misa. But if he made a mistake even in things that the tzedukим were made, we know that tzedukim only listened or abided by Teresh Ksav, not by Teresh Malpeh. So, but if the guy made a mistake in what the tzedukim made a meaning in Teresh Ksav, so then for sure you can reverse it and be mechayiv. Zil kri beiravu. This is, any person could learn this, even a child in Cheder could look at the pasuk and know that this psak that this Dayan gave is not, Dayan had given is nothing, and therefore we can reverse it to be mechayiv and misa. If he made the Dayan made a mistake, when a gay adulterer, Naiv is a man adulterer, and the Hefes is the woman. And one of them he acquitted. What's the din? Is such a psak din toys in what it's dukim made, and therefore you can reverse it l'chayva and to be mechayiv the one that the adulterer that they acquitted. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan said, "Adem moigdach yaki zil kaitz karach utzlei." Kolzman the flame is burning, cut gourds and roast them. Meaning to say, while you're still dealing with this sugya, understand and paskin, since you already heard from that, if the Dayan makes a mistake in something that it's doikim or maida, that's Torah B'Ksav, of course you can reverse the din to be mechayiv, because even it's like maida that the man adulterer is and a chaya misa, and there's no way that you can make a mistake in it. Therefore, we can conclude that if the Dayan was mesaka, the adulterer and acquitted him from being Chaim Misa, you could reverse it to make him Chaim Misa. Itamanami, we also learned Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi had said the name of Rabbi Yochanan. If somebody made a mistake in the adulterer and he acquitted him from Misa, he can retract in the Psak if he found himself to make a mistake, and he can be Mechayiv and Misa. In which case, by Znus, could we say the Mishnah's Psak that by Din Nefashis we don't reverse it l'chayva if he came out the Zakai? Which case will it be? For instance, that the Dayan made a mistake and acquitted the Nayav, the adulterer, Biznus Shaloi Kedarka, that it was done, it was a Znus Shaloi Kedarka. So since such a thing is not written beferish Torah, so such a Znus is taka asa yichai misa, but it's like not made it. It's not written beferish Torah. So if the Dayan made a mistake and he acquitted the adulterers who committed shalei kedaka, then we don't reverse the din. Dinim mavanis hakel, malamnis chus v'chayv. In the Mishnah we learned that dinim mavanis we could find schusim, we could reverse for schusim and or reverse to be mechayvim. Din nefashis every hakel malamnim schus. Everybody could be malamet schus, but to reverse it, to be mechayvim, you can't find tinus of chayv, only the dayanim. We're not talking about reverse, we're talking about finding tinus. From this, that the Mishnah says hakel, that everybody can find a tinus of schus for din in the fashis, is mashma afilo edim that testified that he did the aveda. Those edim themselves could retract and find tinus to say that he's not Chayiv Misa. In fact, you want to then Maslis, let us say our Mishnah follows Rabbi Yehuda. He will like Rabbanan and not like the Rabbanan. The Tanya that we learned in the Braisa, it says in the Pasuk Eid Dechot, Lo Yana B'Nafesh, that an Eid that testifies that a person was Eva Aveda, upon which you Chayiv Misa, they cannot come and bring up their tinus B'Dinai. Because that one aid, even though Pshut Shamika, it's after to be Mechayv a person misa on the testimony of one aid, but this din was already written elsewhere, Pishnayim Eidim Yumas Hameis, and not through one aid. So therefore the Gemara understands that the pasuk that they are talking about by aid that brought rayas to be Mechayv the guilty, all this chusay it's talking about. Rabbi Yehuda, Omer, that the aid could be Maila l'schus, our Mishnah is talking about Shakel, Melamdim schus. Is it fitting only according to Rabbi Yehuda, which is Adas Yachid? So you see that the aid could give arguments for l'schus, but he cannot give arguments for chayv. So our Mishnah comes out according to Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Papa Gamford, that when our Mishnah says that anyone who gives arguments for schusim is bachman al talmidim, is referring to the talmidim of the judges who sit in front of the judges, but they're not part of the dayanim. And is therefore it goes according to Kuli Alma. So our Papa is saying really the Edom cannot be Melamed Schuz or Melamed Chayva. Who is it referring to? For the Dayanim, they are allowed to be Melamed Schus, like the Mishnah will say later on. And this follows everybody. So my time to Rabbi Yehuda was the reasoning of Rabbi Yehuda that the aid is allowed to be Melamed Schus. His because the pasuk that we brought before is a makar that an aid cannot bring up a tinus. Tinus of halacha, a tinus of halacha b'din. It says aid achad lo yana b'nefesh lamos, which is mashma that an aid only lamos udeinaina. He's not allowed to be melamed chayiv that the nidin should be chay misa. But he's allowed to be melamed schus and bring up tinus to patehim. Rabbanan who say that the aid cannot be melamed even for schus. Amrei shlakish mishum the marzeh b'nageya kinageme do say because it looks like the aid who's testifying. He's doing it out because he's afraid. He's a negeva dava. Because he doesn't want they should paskin lamisa. That's why he's paskin l'schus. Because he's afraid that he's going to be caught. He was lying about to be mechayv misa, and he was afraid that he's going to be muzam by Aiden, and he'll be chayv misa. That's why he's trying to be melamed schus. So he's in the geva dava. That's what the Rabbanan are saying. The pasuk is coming to teach us. So Rabbanan who say that and so the Rabbanan argue that that's why the Rabbanan argue with Rabbi Yossi that even for the schus the aid cannot come up with times to be mezakeh. Rabbanan, what are the Rabbanan going to do with this limud? Because Rabbi Yossi learned from this pasuk from the word lamos that he cannot come up with times to be mechayev misa, but l'schus he could, and the Rabbanan said even l'schus he can't because he's in the Geba Dava. So what did they do with this? Lamus my dashmei. What are they going to dash with the word lamus that says on the pasuk at the end of the pasuk, which is mashma only for chayv, aid cannot be melamed chayva, but he can be melamed schus. He says mukman lei. He will establish these words by echad min al-talmidim. It's referring to one of the talmidim who was sitting before the dayanim that they can be melamed schus, but not chayv. Kidetanya, like we learned in the Braisa. Omar, if Echad Eidim said, one of the witnesses said, Yeshli lelamed Allah schus. I have a tinus to be melamed schus on the nidai. Menayin shein shem elay. How do we know we don't listen to him? One aid is not allowed to bring up tinus at all. How do we know that if one of the students sitting in front of the dayanim who has tinus to find to be mechayev the nidei misa, how do we know we don't listen to him? So the word lamus is referring to the talmidim that they are not allowed to be melamed chayiv to find tinus to be mechayev him misa, even though they are allowed to find tinus to acquit him. But benegay to the edim, we only dash in the beginning of the pasuk that they're not allowed at all to come up with tinus, not lechayva, not l'schus.